Welcome to the Horror Interview Show. I'm Skullface. Today I am interviewing Kipp Tribble, who has made many movies, including in the horror genre. I believe that you have another type of movie coming out in the fall, Before Never. What would people like about the storyline?
Thank you, Skullface, for having me. So Before Never is a an alt reality version of the Peter Pan story. It's obviously been a beloved classic for a very long time, but we put a spin on it. Not a horror spin; it's more of a psychological thriller, and we've set this in a contemporary world, but it's in an alt reality, meaning that there's a few things that are not quite like the world that we know today. Technology isn't quite what it is. Um, People dress a little bit differently. People speak in a little bit different cadence. And yeah, we're deep into post-production right now. Very close to locking picture, getting ready to go into the sound and color portions of post-production. Um, while you don't have to be a huge Peter Pan fan or Captain Hook fan to enjoy this story. Um, you know, it's that we definitely have a lot of Easter eggs for fans of the original book, just fans of the story. You know, we went to the original book as our source material, which is a lot darker than a lot of people realize that a lot of Peter Pan movies are. And so we went to that source material and just kind of turned everything up on its head. And this is Before Never. And even if you aren't a Peter Pan fan or don't know a lot about the original story, you're going to enjoy this because when I set out to write the script and I was developing the story with my co-director Derek and our executive producer Dan Baccarini, um, really set out first to write a psychological thriller from beginning to end, and then infuse that with the Peter Pan characters and all the books or all the characters from J.M. Barrie's book. And so yeah, that's what we have. And so I think it's going to be something different, something interesting, um, and I'm excited for people to see it.
What inspired you guys to do a prequel to the Peter Pan story?
Honestly, it was I don't know if I would say it inspired us, but it definitely drew our attention to it was Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, which is definitely a horror movie, it's a total slasher movie. Um, I just recently saw the movie, I don't know, a month or so ago, but when I read that they were doing that and realized that Winnie the Pooh is now public domain and saw what they were doing, it just got me thinking about some of the classic stories that I loved and some of the characters that I really enjoyed growing up. I grew up in a house, we didn't have a TV, we weren't allowed to really go to movies and stuff, but I was allowed to have a record player. And one of my favorite records that I played over and over and over was the Peter Pan record. And I have multiple different version stories of that. Of course, I had the Disney version. There was some other different, like Golden Book had a version, I think. And so I would listen to those all the time, love the whole story. And then when I found out that Peter Pan was actually also entering entering the public domain, um, that's what sparked the interest. And so I guess you could say we were inspired by those Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey guys, just as what they were doing. And it just kind of made me dig a little bit deeper into some of the characters that we loved. And that was one that, I mean, we were all huge fans of. So it was a no-brainer.
Were any scenes difficult to film?
Yes, there's always some difficulty in filming scenes, but I will say, and I've told so many people this, um, I've been doing this for many, many years, hence the gray in my beard. Um, but this was hands down the best filming experience and creative experience that myself and many of the others that were involved in this have ever had. And that's due to a lot of things. Obviously, just the development period that we had, the team that we had, everyone's attitude, everyone was there for the right reason, and this project came along at the right time. However, there's always weather that you have to deal with, or lunch didn't get ordered in time, or whatever. A car breaks down. There's always some sort of issue, technical issue. A crew member gets sick, or whatever that would be. That didn't happen on this. Um, as a matter of fact, everything continued to get better every single day. When we needed it to stop raining, it stopped raining to the minute. When we needed it to start raining to match something we'd shot 7 days before, it started raining. Um, I would say probably the most difficult thing to shoot for me was we have a duel, a sword fight, and it was just physically challenging, but also Kenny Yates and I, who plays Peter Pan, and he's one of our producers. He and I had worked on it, on the choreography for several weeks leading up to it. But then we only had a very short period of time to do it, and we were racing against the rain. And so we had to not only get it down, but to go through all this physical activity over and over and over. And that was next to our last day of shooting. And then we got through all of that. So that was at the top of our day. So we were physically exhausted after that. That was probably the most difficult. And then we had an incident where um, one of the swords actually broke midway through. And so we had to incorporate that into our choreography because we didn't have a backup. Um, so that was probably the most difficult, but honestly, in comparison to some scenes that we've had to shoot over the years, it was a breeze. And then we finished it off the next day with our last day of shooting with some more physical activity. So I needed about 2 weeks of recoupment after we finished that.
What did you like about playing your character?
You know, I our Captain Hook, our version of Captain Hook, has a lot of demons, has a lot of he's going through a lot of grief, and he's dealing with a lot of emotions. He has a lot of guilt as his wife has disappeared. He's searching for his wife. He's searching for who might have taken his wife, or did she disappear on her own? It's a bit of a mystery as you go along in the film. I don't give too much away, but it was playing the different layers of emotion. He's very stoic and closed off at first, but he slowly starts to open up. He has a little bit of a softer side and a jovial side that you see with his friend Smee. But he's dealing with all these emotions, the grief, the guilt, the anger. And then he slowly starts to turn to more of the villainous side that you know as the Captain Hook that many of us know. Um, so it was really it was challenging. I guess I would say enjoyable playing those different levels, but it was emotionally taxing and something that definitely took me a week or two, a month or two to really kind of come down from that. But that and just the back and forth dance I got to play with every character I was involved with on screen. Whether it was Kenny as Peter Pan, whether it was Derek Wingo as Smee. Um, any of the Darling family. It was really a treat getting to go toe to toe with them every day.
Do you think having something based around a familiar story will help bring people to watch this movie?
Um, I would say initially probably yes, I would be interested in that just because of the Peter Pan story. However, in today's marketplace, that's hard to say. It's such a flooded marketplace with so much material and so many different options and things to watch. Um, I'm hoping a lot of the Peter Pan fans will watch it. We've definitely tried to stay true to the book. Like I said, a lot of Easter eggs in there. Really hoping that those fans will come out to check it out. We haven't gone the cheesy, you know, route with it. We haven't gone a horror movie with it. So, horror people who don't like horror are still going to enjoy it. But we've maintained the psychological thriller aspect for those fans, um, and the dramatic elements. But I think that initially should turn turn some heads, and I'm hoping we'll get a lot of eyeballs on it.
Would you consider doing your own spin on a different story if this film gets good metrics?
Yeah, yeah, I definitely would. I've got my eyes on some that I'm not going to mention yet that aren't in public domain, but coming up very soon. Uh, and it's not something I ever would have considered before this. I never even thought about it. But it's interesting once you take existing characters and storylines and put a whole different, completely new twist on it. Um, it's fun. It kind of reminds me of kind of a restaging of some of the Shakespeare stuff that I was involved in and many years ago when I started on stage. So yeah, definitely I would consider it again.
How long did it take to write?
Um, I would say 6 to 8 weeks for the first draft, and then there's some revisions beyond that. So overall, from beginning of outlining to the end, I would say 3.5 to 4 months is probably what we did.
Do you find writing easy and do you get writer's block?
Um, I love writing, and also it's one of those things where you have a love-hate relationship with. Yes, I get writer's block. I get writer's block about ridiculous things like I will stare at a page for I'll stare at a page for an hour and a half trying to come up with a name of one character or titles. I'm really bad, or it takes me a long time to come up with titles. Yeah, and then you just get writer's block. Sometimes you can't solve a certain problem, a certain issue. It's hard to, you know, um, kind of step back and look at it in a different light. So I love writing. I've done it, gosh, since I was a kid. But I do get mired in there sometimes where I get very frustrated with it. I'll put it that way.
You also have a more horror-themed film, Cat Crime, Tales of the Occult. What is that about?
So we shot that earlier this year. It is about three girls who one of them is a podcaster, and she's in search for her missing mom, and she stumbles up on this coven of witches that she wants to go and interview the head of this coven. And I play the husband of the head of the coven, and I produce the film. And so then they go to interview her, and the three of the girls go there, and some stuff starts to happen while they're there interviewing the head witch of the coven. I'll put it that way. But it's a fun mystery. There's a few twists. And it's thrilling, got some horror elements. So it's gonna be fun. It's in post-production right now as well.
How many days did you spend filming it?
Cat Crime we shot for 10, 11 days. A lot of rain was happening in LA at the time, and we battled some elements there to get through. But luckily, it's a fairly contained to only a handful of locations, so we were able to knock out a bunch of stuff. And there's a lot of moving parts to it, a decent sized cast. But yeah, it was about 10 or 11 days, I believe.
I think the horror film Shark Girl comes out in Shark Week. As consulting producer, what exactly did you do for the movie?
So Rob Zazali and Justin Chilton are the two brains behind that. And I've known Rob, man, about 25 years now. And he and I have done a couple movies together. And he came to me with this idea that he and his partner Justin wanted to make a low budget horror movie. And they had not tackled one before, and asked if I would consult on that. And so I did. So they developed the idea. I gave them some notes on the idea and the outline. Then I gave them notes through the scripting process. Gave them some ideas about how to put together their production to maximize their potential, even though it's a low budget. Helped them a little bit with some casting, and then consulted during production on, just questions that they had. What should we do on this day? A little questions about scheduling. And then when we got into post, same thing. consulted on any questions they had about walking through post, how to maximize what they can get on screen, and then give them the notes on the edit. And then after that, send it out to some distributors for them and kind of walk them through that process as well. So it's a lot of advice, but they are definitely the ones to congratulate for the success of this film. It's a really fun movie. It's again, it's called Shark Girl, but it's basically a vampire story, except the vampire bite came from a shark. So the properties from the shark is replacing the vampire properties that you would normally see. It's really fun movie.
You've done a lot of movies. What are things you've learned to do that ensure movies run as smooth as possible?
Um, Preparation, prep. I'm telling you, pre-production is time and time and time again. So many people say, "Great, we're going to shoot in 2 weeks or 3 weeks," and then hope everything's going to go well during your production. I would absolutely trade less time to shoot during a production and have more time to prep. So prep, number one, and number two, the team. All it takes, and we've all seen it happen many, many times, all it takes is one person to ruin it for everyone and to sour the entire production. And that will spread, like a cancer through a production. So the team and preparation, but obviously you got to start with a great script. You can never make a terrible script great in production, but you can also make a great script bad during production. So you have to start with a great script to give yourself a shot. But but prep and the right team. You got to have that.
Can I ask, what are some of the worst things that have gone wrong on your sets?
Oh, there's been lots. Wow, man, there's just the elements will get you sometimes, whether it's crazy amounts of rain that will flood the set, that will get your truck stuck in mud. There's sewage issues with the trailers that you have. Then there's been one time we were evacuated right in the middle of our day of shooting because of a forest fire. And we couldn't go back down the mountain, so we had to go further on the other side of the mountain, rent a place there, try to match it, and just keep shooting. So those are some things. COVID was a really difficult period, and I did a lot of movies during COVID. There was one that we had 11 different people go down with COVID on cast and crew in 16 days. And one of them was our lead actress on day two, I believe it was. Um, we had a union strike happen during one of them. That only affected three crew members, but they were very vital crew members. That was, on day one. It's all the little things like that that doesn't seem like it would be, oh well, three crew members have to replace these people. It's pretty huge. It's pretty huge when you're already up and going. But then we had another film during COVID. Our entire camera department, except for one person, went down on the same day. And that's pretty difficult when you're running two cameras and you need two people minimum on each camera. So those are some issues. You know, luckily we haven't had any dangerous accidents or anything like that. But it's those are probably some of the harder things that come, well, aside from dealing with some high profile actors that sometimes aren't the nicest people in the world to deal with. But generally most of them are very, very great, but there's a handful that sometimes are a little difficult. I won't name names.
What has been your favorite horror movie that you have produced?
Hmm. I would say, I mean, just because I had such a blast doing it, probably Charman. It's such a simple, small movie. We made it for nothing, literally nothing, and we have had such success with it. It got us a TV deal over at Warner Brothers for a bit, and then COVID came along. Um, but it was just some guys going out with no pretenses. We just went out just to make a fun found footage film based on a real urban legend up in Ojai, and we had such a great time doing it. And it's just been it's the little tiny film that just keeps on giving. And we made that thing in 2018, came out in 2019, and it still keeps on giving. One way or the other, we still get fans reaching out to us. It still makes a few bucks here and there. So that I would say probably that was probably the top one.
What is your favorite type of horror movie?
My favorite type are the ones rooted in reality. I think something like The Strangers, the original Strangers, 2008, is probably one of the most scary horror movies. Because it's so real. Um, I enjoy all kinds of horror movies, psychological horror movies, definitely. And I put The Strangers in a psychological horror movie situation because the whole movie they are torturing these people psychologically. Um, that's kind of my favorite, but I do have a soft spot for, ghost stories, classic ghost stories. Big fan of The Others, the Nicole Kidman film that she did a few years ago. Um, Skeleton Key I thought was excellent. I guess kind of those gothic horror or gothic ghost stories are I love those.
What type of horror movie would you say is the easiest to film?
I mean, I guess I would say found footage just because you don't have to focus as much on the technical side of it, but at the same time, it's a double-edged sword because you might not have to be focused about making somebody look pretty with lighting, or you may not have to focus as much on the sound quality because it's found footage. It's supposed to be rough around the edges. But the flip side is to make the found footage appear realistic and real, as if it is found footage. Um, and also capturing what you want to capture in the frame, but make it look like an accident. So that's the challenge. But I would say those are probably the easiest to film because you can shoot it 10 times faster because you're just constantly moving, constantly shooting. And from that, the challenge is then in post, because you're piecing together all this footage like documentaries do. They take these, hundreds of hours of footage and they piece them all together to make one cohesive story. And that's kind of like what found footage is. You just keep shooting, keep making up stuff, and you keep pushing through. And then, you tell it in post. So I would say that's probably the easiest one. Obviously, contained ones are a little bit more simple. Like Evil at the Door, we did was in one house, and we blazed through that one because we only had 4 days to shoot it. But that wasn't so easy because we had so much to shoot in 4 days, and there were a lot of moving parts. So my long way to get to the short answer, found footage, I would say, were the easiest ones.
Are you inspired by any independent filmmakers, and who if so?
I mean, it probably at this point from indie filmmakers, it probably sounds cliche, but the Duplass brothers are such an inspiration. Not only are they, just good human beings and have such positive attitudes, but it's just the one thing that I've always been inspired by them and learned from them are, don't get caught up in the cosmetics of making a film. Too many indie filmmakers will spend so much money and hours and time just trying to make, one shot look great, or this scene has to be perfectly lit, or we need, the biggest lighting package we can get because that's what's going to set us apart. But it will never set you apart because you will never, ever compete with the studio level budgets. Um, and they just went to the basics of point the camera, get the scene, get the emotion, get the story, and just keep doing it. Do something every day, and also don't expect because you just made a film. Mark Duplass has that great speech from South by Southwest. I think it was 2016, the keynote speech that he gives, and he keeps saying over and over, you've made this film, you think it's great. It turned out good. And just so you know, the cavalry's not coming, meaning that you're still, you are still going to have to create your own stuff. You're still going to have to create your own path. So that's one thing that I've been inspired by. The other one is Ed Burns. Maybe not so much his, his movies maybe not aren't exactly my brand, um, but the way that he found huge success and he was up here and then he brought it all the way back down to the basics. He was making multi-million dollar movies and then went and turned around and did the Newlyweds for $11,000, because it's just, he just went back to the basics. No lighting equipment, three crew members, just a handful in the cast. Everybody's working for free and camera and a sound guy. And that was about it. Everybody does their own hair and makeup. Everybody wears their own wardrobe. Um, and he called it McMullen 2.0 was the rules that he wrote up for that. And that's been really inspiring too, because it's easy to get caught up in like, well, I made this film, so I've got to jump up a rung and make this one for more money and look a little bit better. And then I got to jump up again. Well, that's not how it works always, because there is going to be a ceiling to that, whether it's creatively, whether it's monetarily, there will be a ceiling there. So, Ed Burns, Duplass Brothers, so go and make these bigger budget ones and then come down and make one for 10 grand. So that's what's inspiring to me, and that's what I want to continue to do. Is go up and make these few $1 million films and then come down and make a little tiny one. And that's what I want to continue to do.
What are some of your favorite low-budget movies and what do you most like about them?
Anybody who knows me knows what I'm going to say first. Coherence is probably my favorite low budget movie. It was made for about 50 grand. um, one location. I think they shot it in 5 days. It's a brilliant, smart, um, loosely improvised script and story. It's just smart. It's a good thriller. It has a great twist, and it's constantly keeping you engaged in one location, mostly just at this dinner party all night. And they don't do that with much bells and whistles, a lot of handheld documentary style work. Focus goes in and out. Um, but you never notice because the story is so engaging. The dialogue is so engaging. Um, that's one of my favorites. Man, there's a long list, but I would say that's probably the top one. Um, I may sound silly, but the original Saw was a great example. That was a little bit bigger budget than the some of the low budgets I work with, but I think that's again a great example. Some of the classic horror movies, like Texas Chainsaw, all those, just a lot of inspiration from those and admiration for what they pulled off for that low budget.
What are some tricks to film horror movies on very low budgets?
Um, it, Tricks are, I mean, it's really about for me. I lean more towards a slow burn film anyway, and that's just what I enjoy. So I think if you can get the pacing and the timing of your slow burn down properly, that in and of itself is a trick. If you can get that and keep that level of tension and suspension going for lengthy periods of time, you're maximizing your budget because you're getting all this time on screen, but keeping the tension there. Other things is like I know a lot of people will be like, oh, well, just get as much blood in there as you can and throw a bunch of blood and make everything all gory. Well, that's not helping you with your budget because it takes a lot of time because it's messy. You have to make sure the continuity is correct from scene to scene with all of that. And it's also not super cheap. You still have to generate that. You have to have one or two people that's on top of wrangling the blood and the gore and the special effects and stuff. So a lot of people say, well, make a cheap horror film, just put a bunch of blood in it. It's actually not the case. So I actually keep the blood the blood pretty low on a lot of the films that I do. It's just kind of my taste anyway. But I think that that's the way to keep your budgets a little low. And also casting. You just have to cast the people who know how to move. As soon as you get an actor who comes in and then wants to start asking questions on set the day of, I'm not talking about just one question. I'm talking about somebody who basically is starting from ground zero with their character and really want to work through everything and rehearse the scene over and over. That'll kill you. That's what pre-production is for. And so you start to cast people that already get it, and you already know what you're going to get from them. They're going to do all their homework. They're going to ask you all the questions in pre-production, and when they come there, they'll ask you one or two tweaks, and they're ready to go. So casting is a big, big deal. Um, that's why I work with a lot of same people. A lot of times, you want to work with people who get it and who have the same goal.
I am planning to make horror movies myself, but I mostly can't be bothered seeking external funding and have some tricks up my sleeve. But for people who want to do external funding, what are the best strategies to do so?
I was very fortunate in my very first film. This is many years ago. I went to a guy that I worked for and asked him to introduce me to some friends who might be interested in investing. And he actually said he and his partners wanted to invest instead. So that's how I got my first film finance. Um, there's a lot of people like that out there who are interested in throwing in 10,000 or 20,000 into a movie just to have their name up as the ex-producer, have a little tax credit, tax break. There are those people out there. However, I fell into a trap kind of in the 2000s of the searching for funding so much that you're actually not creating or making movies. So that's also what I admired about the Duplass brothers is they stopped doing that after a while too, because they realized the same thing. And so if you fall into that trap and you're not creating anything, or you know it, 6, 7 years have gone by and you're still peddling the same script, same story, and you still don't have it funded and you haven't made a single movie or created anything new. So if you're peddling those, great, keep doing it. But go make a iPhone found footage movie during that time. Stay creative. Don't stop. Don't just peddle one thing. Um, Crowdfunding is a massive chore and not the easiest thing in the world, but if you're looking to scrounge up 10 grand, it's possible. But you have to work it every day. It's like a full-time job. You have to email everybody on your list asking them to make a small donation. You then have to follow up on the ones who haven't. Then you text them and you call them and you're posting on social media at the same time. So those are difficult things to pull off when you're still trying to work or you've got things in post or you're trying to create something new or you're just trying to live life. Um, other than that, I got to a point where I I didn't have to seek financing. Not that I don't have to seek it, meaning that I started having people come to me more asking to, hey, I've got a few grand I want to put into this movie or that movie. What do you got? So I did reach a point, I've been at this a few years that, people started coming to me a little bit for that. And I'm very fortunate in that. But it takes a while to get to that point unless you get very, very lucky. But otherwise, you just gotta, any rich person you know, ask them to introduce you to other people who might be interested in putting in $10,000, $5,000, $20,000. And before you know it, you might have 50 grand to make a nice little fun horror movie.
You appear to have quite a few projects that are not yet out. What projects are you most looking forward to coming out or filming?
I would say, yeah, obviously before Never we talked about Cat Crime, we talked about um, A Final Wager I produced. That's a film that's out now. It came out beginning of May and has Michael Madsen, Tom Arnold in it, and Scott Ham Duenas, who I've worked with a few times. Um, so that film, and Kenny Yates directed that, who also stars as Peter Pan. So we've all kind of worked together a lot. I produced that movie at the same time as producing Place of Bones, which is a Western And really excited about that one coming out August 23rd, my daughter's birthday. But that one stars Heather Graham, Corin Nemec, Tom Hopper. Really fun, contained Western, and it's got a nice little twist at the end. And excited about that. But yeah, I was producing both those films at the same time, and yeah, Final Wager came out recently. Very different movies. Final Wager is about a gambling addict who finds himself in a tough spot, needing to come up with some money, and so he dives back into the gambling world secretly. And yeah, it's fun. It's a contained, also contained. Mostly, most of it happens at a bar. And yeah, Place of Bones. Looking forward to that one. And then Joe Baby's coming at some point soon. We haven't announced the distribution release on that yet, but that's yeah, we've got Harvey Keitel, Ron Perlman in that one. That's kind of like an old school private eye action thriller, and it's shot that over in Biloxi, Mississippi. A lot of fun. Deshaun Lockman, who's from Severance and Jurassic World, she's the lead in that, plays the detective. And then Willa Fitzgerald is in that as well. And she's from Fall of House of Usher. That was recently on Netflix. So that's looking forward to that one, and that's coming up soon. We'll be announcing some dates when we have them. But that'll be a lot of fun too. We had the premiere. Oh man, May 2nd, I think. Yeah, so that was fun.
Where can people follow you?
So Instagram, just search my name, Kipp Tribble, Kipptribble. Instagram, Twitter, both of those, search those. I'm on both. And then Facebook, yeah, we usually want to post to Instagram, but go to Facebook as well. But just search my name and you'll I have not found someone else with my name, so you'll likely find me.
I would like to thank Kip for the interview. For people watching, you can like, comment, share, subscribe and whatever else you do to videos if you're watching in the future.